Hey everyone, Dan here. We are about an hour after market close on Wednesday, June 9th. Today we're going to take an updated look at Workhorse. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's jump right in. So Workhorse has had, an evolving pattern, that's for sure. Since this whole thing kicked off, we've had these like big swings down, then big swings up, big swings down, bigger swings up, big swings down, bigger swings up. And we've continued that pattern throughout the day today with an intraday wild swing and now returning back down. So what this has really been forming though is pretty solidly into this 5-day or so channel that it's been holding the bottom bound of and the top bound of repeatedly really well. So if you've watched any of my other videos, aside from the short squeeze situation at hand here, channel plays are really strong because it gives you, if you're sort of looking at Workhorse and say, for example, you don't have a position right now, or let's say you have a position that you bought at 17 and you're like, oh man, when do I have an opportunity to try to dip buy this to average myself down or to get into the play period? Channels provide us, for myself at least, my way of thinking, the best dip buy opportunity, because all you do is you look for the price to come down to the bottom of the channel, show a sign of strength. So for example, if you were watching this here, you'd see these red candles appear, 4 red candles in a row. Wick touches the bottom of the channel, and then what's the next thing you see? You see lining up the bottom of the bodies of the candles as this big green candle starts to appear. So then here you may have said, okay, clearly bounced off the bottom of the channel. This is my best dip buy opportunity. I better take it. And had you done that, you would have seen it run up toward the top of the channel pretty quickly. Now, the other half of what I typically do when I'm looking at channel plays is I take profit toward the top of the channel. Rinse and repeat. Take profit, dip buy, take profit, dip buy. And you can just do it over and over and over again until the channel breaks. So just keep in mind that what sort of is far or near on the horizon with this channel is it will break, because that always happens. And when that happens, you'll probably potentially dip buy the bottom of the channel, and then you'll see it fall out, and that's when you have to make a decision based on your risk tolerance level and what you're seeing in the price activity. Should you cut your losses? And if so, it leaves you with a very small loss on your books, but hopefully you had played several runs up and dip buys at the bottom that gave you really good profits along the way. The other thing that I would just say is if you don't see that sign of strength at the bottom when it hits the bottom of the channel, I personally wouldn't buy in. I first look for a sign of strength, and then I say, okay, this is my best dip buy opportunity. It's looking like it's going to head back up and stay in the channel. But anyway, beyond that, I would say, we could have a quick look at some of the indicators. Pretty low on the RSI, just sitting at 43, and so that could give some good buying pressure coming in. On the MACD, it does look like the bearish momentum, while it had come in quite strongly, is dying down. So there could be the potential here. The MACD is below the baseline. Could be a good opportunity to see it have a bullish crossover and have pretty good run room to get itself up into this area. We do see a decreasing ability of the MACD to stretch higher and higher in these last couple runs. So we'd want to keep an eye on that to just kind of make sure it's going to continue to have strength to run itself up this channel. And obviously the reason that I'm spending much time on this before we look at the short data is because a key component to a short squeeze is that you can get enough pressure on the shorts from the price of the stock alone. If it's going against them from the perspective of the price just keeps getting higher and higher, or is just stable enough that it's not giving them enough meat on the bone because they're paying a high fee to borrow their shares, then that in and of itself could set off a series of closing positions that could trigger a short squeeze. And I couch this with a bunch of like could, maybe, blah, 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 because I said this before, but I should repeat it. There is much more opportunity for this not to squeeze than to squeeze, and not just particularly Workhorse. any of these stocks that have very, very high short interest right now that are getting a lot of attention, they have a lot of escape routes, okay? And there's going to be a lot of manipulation, there's going to be a lot of deception as it appears in the stock because they're flooding all of the supply. So as you have a nexus point between supply and demand that should give you the price point, they are artificially increasing the supply and moving that nexus point lower and lower because the supply and demand curves are getting further away from each other. And so that distortion, is what causes the stock price to go down, and that's why you kind of need to be holding the price strength high through a lot of bullish buy volume, so that you're essentially buying up all of those shares that are being sold short into the market, and keeping the price from falling. So this is just to say stars really have to align in order to have a short squeeze play out. And there's a lot of ways in which it could just sort of like not quite get there. That doesn't mean that even if it doesn't fully short squeeze, there's not a lot of potential profit to be made, and a lot of just interesting experience to be had in this moment. Let's pop over here to the data from today. Here is Workhorse. And today we saw, what do we got, the 8th into the 9th. So 100 shares at close yesterday, so they were almost all taken out of Interactive Broker supply, and a few thousand came back in this morning. The fee ticking up nicely throughout the day. Okay, nothing major, not a parabolic shift in the fee, but it was just in the single digits a few days ago. So remember that. So this is still double, triple the fee that the short sellers were used to incurring just a few days ago. So that's undoubtedly putting some additional pressure. Okay, so there was some closing of positions up to the midday today, and then a bunch of shares borrowed once again to push into the market. And so we see a bunch of positions closing into midday. All right, allowing the stock time to breathe, time to come up, time to recover from all of the artificial supply that's being thrown into the market, and then that artificial supply comes rushing back, right, and pushes it back down again. And so this chart pretty well follows the data that we see from Interactive Brokers, and again, assuming that this is analogous to the other broker-dealers that we see existing in the marketplace, that their data probably looks very, very similar. So just multiply this out by however many broker-dealers there are out there, and you probably have a pretty similar picture in place. In terms of where the shares are making moves at the moment, yesterday, this is an incredibly high short volume ratio. A lot of the stocks we look at, even if they have very, very high short interest, we're talking about Clove, talking about SoFi, Skills, things like that. They have very, very high short interest, but this short volume ratio with Workhorse is of some of the highest, even within that sort of small group of stocks. In the 30s is really a nutso number. That's really, really attention grabbing, and it has maintained that for the last 4 days. If we include today as being just on the cusp, just shy of 30, it's maintaining that for basically 4 days. That is a nutty stat. It'll be interesting to see when this volume comes in from today, which should be in a few hours, and it gets updated here. It'll be interesting to see what happens if it continues to stay that high. It appears to be because there's so few shares to borrow, right? There's not a lot of big closing positions coming in. Here, there's 40,000 available, and even that's not a big number. I don't even see, there's not even any spots in the millions here, which is irregular. So I would expect this to still be very high once we get today's data, and this just shows me the shorts are still coming in very, very strong. So even while this sort of run-up is playing out, and there's a lot of buying pressure coming in, continuously pushing it higher and higher, this still gives them a lot of opportunity to take short positions out and then cover them, and then take them out and then cover them. So even these wild swings, it just gives them quicker ins and outs, fewer days that they need to cover, and there's still obviously opportunity to profit from that. What will start to take that option away a little bit is if that fee can get up to 60, 70, 80%. then those small, relatively small swings that we see within a day or two on Workhorse potentially won't be enough in order to risk the capital to be able to borrow high and buy back low. So again, that fee coming back into play is just being super, super important, as we know. Still waiting for updated end of May data here. Hopefully we get end of May data by the end of June. I don't know why it's taking so long. It should be coming in any day now, but that's what I'm still waiting for to see. You know, this is nearly at 40%, which is a crazy, crazy number, and I wouldn't really expect it to be lower for the next one, which would put us solidly into the 40s, just based on what I'm seeing from the ratio and from the availability. That's what I would expect, but we'll see. So I hope y'all are hanging in there. I would pay really strong attention to this channel while this channel stays alive. And again, it'll eventually break. I don't know when, but you'll see it when it happens. It'll be pretty obvious. All right, well, good luck if you're in this one. I hope your week is off to a solid, I was going to say a solid start, but I hope you had a solid hump day and that your week finishes strong starting tomorrow. How about that? All right, well, thanks a bunch for watching, and I will see you in the next video.